Mr. Begley and members of the board, we do have several items for board discussion this evening. Our first item is our book study, and we're looking at The Power of Positive Leadership, chapters 5 through 8, pages 44 through 134. If you remember, our prompts are pretty simple. I read, I noticed, I wondered.
Well, I've got a couple of different thoughts here. I'll kind of start us in order. Page 52, and talking to yourself, really kind of hit me. I think, especially in light of the presentation we just had. Page 52, it says, I've learned to talk to myself instead of listen to myself. And I think a lot of self-talk, or what he's referring to when you're listening to yourself, can be negative in nature. And so being purposeful in what you're saying to yourself and encouraging yourself can be, I think, a very important tool. It really can be used anywhere, anytime, all the time. So what I took from this next couple chapters are just key little lines like that I think are very transferable and very usable moving forward. He goes on to say, we can speak truth to the lies and fuel up on words and phrases and thoughts that strengthen and empower us.
I think that's a very good section. I was actually on page 53, one that I highlighted. It says, every strike brings me closer to the next home run. These are in the words of Babe Ruth. And anyone pursuing anything worthwhile will fail and fail often. I have certainly failed many times, but when I look back, I realize I wasn't failing, I was growing. And that is so important because all of this, this time, these years that we've had, trying to adjust to living with so many changes due to the pandemic. Our kids have just continued to thrive. They've continued to keep on going. They never gave up. And our staff, superintendents, all of your support staff, everyone just kept going. And it's not a matter of getting it right the first time, because seldom do we get it right often the first time. It is basically that continuous improvement that builds a better product. So continuing to try, even through adversity, even through really trying times, things that really would test the nerves of a saint. Those things just make you better and better. And that positive attitude radiates throughout this whole entire book. And so from the words of Babe Ruth, echoed again in this book, I think that's what our kids have demonstrated. And so I've learned not only from them, but just having that re-emphasized was good. It's good.
That's a great point. It's shorter because if you remember back to what Dr. Rice was talking about, when we first started that work, for a while it wasn't going smoothly. It took us some time. We had to figure out, hey, we just need to keep chipping away at this. Let's start to bring all the players together so that we can talk about these barriers and all work together to eliminate them. And just today, we were in a building talking with the principal about just the importance of just trying to get a little better. And, one day at a time, 1 month at a time, that a school is not going to dramatically change in one school year. That you have to go through that cycle, and then you have to look at it and assess it at the end of the year, and then make some decisions, evaluate and see, hey, what can we do differently next year to get a little bit better, in these particular areas. So, but it's hard to accept failure sometimes when you work so hard and you have such high expectations and dreams, and you put all the work in and then you don't get the result that you want. But you just have to be patient and keep moving forward. It's a great point.
I kind of had an aha moment while reading this on page 82 with the Michael Phelps positive leadership. Every now and then you hear a bunch of negative comments or someone complaining. And during training camp at one of the meetings, I said to the guys that we are getting ready to go to the Olympics. This is what we have to do, and that if there is a negative comment, keep it to yourself. The more positive we have as a team, the better we are going to be. As soon as I said that, we became closer and we were really starting to get going. It kind of reminded me of the Bengals Super Bowl run recently. Burrows was a really big positive energy the entire time, like, why not us? We can do this. I'm sick of people saying we're the underdog, like, we are a strong team. And so it really kind of had an aha moment for me, like, yes, we lead with this positive energy and set ourselves up to succeed, we will succeed.
Yep. Yeah, it's all about the attitude. Yep.
Jump back to page 51, and I like dogs and baseball, so I like both of those subtitles. If you whatever you feed, that's what's going to get the most growth, and if you feed the negativity, that's just going to eat you up. So feed that positive dog, and then I had that same quote by Babe Ruth underlined as well, or highlighted. I believe in the game, no matter what happens the last pitch, but the next pitch could be something totally different and change the whole game. And then jump over to Think Like a Rookie. That one really struck me, I guess, because, and it's kind of related to what Mr. Smith just said, when you're a veteran or you've been through this, done that, that's kind of set in your ways. And if anything, through COVID, the pandemic showed you can't do things the same way we always did. And the district made that turn, and for lack of better terms, thought like a rookie. We had to do things differently. And we moved forward. We made some errors, but we fixed them really quick. And like we said many times, y'all turned on a dime and made things work. And so if you think differently, the old way of doing things isn't always the best way. And like it says in there, make the good old days now. That will be good old days later on. So think like a rookie.
I like that section too about thinking like a rookie. I don't know about anybody else, but I know I've worked places before where when you walk in on your first day and you meet people that have been there 20, 25 years or whatever, you're like, hey, nice to meet you, how you doing? And they're like, I'm living the dream, and it's like, oh, okay, which dream is this? But I'm just glad to be there, like, yes, I got a new job, I'm ready to go, and let's do some stuff, and to kind of talk about the energy vampires, it sucks the energy out of you a little bit. So I like thinking like a rookie. I like the part on page 54, tell yourself a positive story. A lot of times, when I was younger, if something went wrong, I was like, oh, today can't get any worse. And then you live a little longer and you go, okay, yeah, it could have gotten a lot worse, so I'm not going to say that anymore and invite it to come in. So I thought those were interesting. And then on page, I'm jumping ahead. I don't think I read ahead this time, but I might have. Page 123, where he's talking about it's not about you. And he was talking about, focusing on other people, believing in other people more than they believe in themselves. And I thought that was very interesting. I don't know if TED Talks are still a thing, but I watched TED Talks years ago, and there was one that was like how to be unhappy. And that one always stuck with me because like the number one rule of how to be unhappy was focus on yourself and nobody else. And I thought, well, this kind of goes right in with that. It's like, this is not about you. Focus on other people. Believe in other people and let them know. So that really spoke to me too.
I'll share just a few things, and before I get to those two, I love the part about the rookies, and I think it's important to protect the rookies, because sometimes rookies can share things and the veterans don't want to hear it. And then the rookies might shut down if they feel like others are not open-minded to their ideas. So always, I thought about that when I read the piece about the rookies. But I'm going to talk about page 63 and 64. We talk about changing the world, and we talk about it, one day at a time, one student at a time. But on right above where it says lead with faith instead of fear, it talks about every business and leader, wherever they are located, can create a bubble of optimism and transfer their belief to their team, organization, or community, city, and following. And then it goes on to talks about leaders, and being a positive leader is all about leading with faith in a world filled with cynicism, negativity, and fear. And as a leader, you must realize your people are facing this battle daily. They're filled with fear, doubt, and uncertainty, and it's your job to inspire them with faith. Leading with optimism, positivity, and belief comes down to leading with faith instead of fear. Positive leaders are the ones who change the world. And there is a lot of negativity, and we talk with leaders across the district. We remind each other that, you know, leaders of a department, leaders of a building, leaders of the district, people are looking to the leaders to be the positive voice, to be the calming voice. When there's chaos, someone has to step up and lead with positivity and not, you know, oh gosh, here we go again, you know, or this is just the worst thing that's ever happened. How are we going to get out of this? This is terrible, because we all know that really doesn't do any good. So that really struck me. And then one of my favorite parts on page 64, be an over-believer. And there's a quote, Davos Sweeney, I'm not an overachiever, I'm an over-believer. And that reminded me of my coaching days. And I told this story at a leadership meeting. I was coaching the freshman team, and we would scrimmage the JV team. And as a coach, I believed every single time that we were going to win that scrimmage, even though my players were a couple years younger. And my kids felt that for me. No matter who we were playing, if it was an older team, I believed that we were going to go out and win. Because you couldn't convince me, which means that you couldn't convince the players on my team that anyone worked harder than we did. We worked harder than everyone else. We deserved it just as much as anyone. But the belief part, people pick up on that. They know if you are a believer. They know if you're just, are you saying the words, or do you really believe it with your heart? Do you wear it on your sleeve? And I just think that is critical. And then there's a line that reminded me of our Teacher of the Year on page 66. Speak life into them. You know, that was my favorite part of, you know, those 80 pages or 90, whatever we read. That really resonated with me.
Mr. Smith, just to add to everything you just said, it kind of coattails that on 79, demonstrate to others what real positivity in the form of love, patience, kindness, and care looks like. Because people know when it's fake. I mean, you can have a cheerleader, that's not a leader. A leader does just what you said. They do it, it's authentic, and make things happen. And I think that's true. People know when it's real positivity versus a fakeness.
Yeah, absolutely.
To piggyback off of that, on 144, the believe in others more than they believe in themselves. You really do have to, like, show the positivity in that cheerleadership in themselves, because sometimes people do need just that little step, that little encouragement to really fully achieve. And that's something I've lived with and been taught my entire life, is put the positivity out there and make others believe as much as you believe.
I know, and just skipping ahead, I just want to make sure that I mention this one story because it was so impactful, and it almost had me crying. You know how I am. But anyway, you know, when they're talking about develop your caring trademark, you know, that thing that you do that people just sort of identify with. And I thought of you, Billy. There was a superintendent that's talked about in the book. I think it was in a school district in Texas, right? And it's on page 129. It's developing your caring trademark. So this particular superintendent, his trademark started because for all of the graduating seniors, he would actually
Oh, yeah.
write a note
Yeah.
for every single one of the kids that was graduating. So like it started with 170, so that wasn't so onerous, of a task. And then the graduating class was 400. And he was still doing the same thing. So I remember in the book, there was a kid at lunch. He went and sat with that kid, and they discussed something kind of off, but he remembered that. And so the mom was retelling the story about the superintendent and the fact that the superintendent remembered these little small things. And so that trademark that you build with people, and it becomes your brand, and just demonstrating that you really care. Throughout the book, it talks about how important it is to truly care and love. And I see that in our administration, and I really think that's why, even with all the obstacles, we've been moving on and doing what we need to do. So I just wanted to mention that story because that superintendent is still doing great things. He says that even if his class is like 800 or some number like that, he's going to still find a way to do it. And it's just that sense of caring and having that trademark brand that people recognize. I think that's really important. So I really enjoyed the book. It's really
I
good.
can make just a quick comment. Some of you may have wondered the difference between an average teacher and a great teacher, and he sums it up really briefly here in a section called "Love is the Greatest Leadership Principle on the Planet." He said, "Love is what separates good and great. Good teachers know their lesson plans. Great teachers know and love their students." I thought that's powerful.
Yeah. Yep. It really was.
Yeah. Well, and it's really close to what we've been talking about. On 120, it talks about you don't have to be great to serve, but you have to serve to be great. And of course, the whole idea of a servant leader is its own book, right? And a concept that we should be familiar with, whether we practice it or not, we should. What am I doing to serve my team and the people I lead? How can I serve them to help them be the best versions of themselves? How can I demonstrate my commitment to them? So those are a lot of questions about what can I do for others instead of, what can somebody do for me? What will I get out of this? How will I accomplish this? We accomplish this through making others better. And again, you see Billy in so much of this, and I certainly do too.
And that was the one page in this whole entire section that I just dog-eared. That same section, because when leaders become focused on the fruit instead of the root, when they worry about the outcome instead of the process of developing team members, they may survive in the short run, but they will not thrive in the long run. And so just the idea of developing people, and that was something that I noticed quite a bit when I was looking at your evaluation. There's lots of themes here, so it's just one thing after another, just confirming, reaffirming that we're doing the right thing. You're on the right track. The district's on the right track, so this is very good. It's very positive leadership. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to comment. I was, talking about being a servant leader, and a lot of things that we read, and we can not only apply it to what we do at work, but you can apply it at home or in your personal life. And I was telling Mr. Martin a story recently about outside of work where someone was having a conversation with me, and it was an emotional one, and I found myself speechless and really didn't know what to say. It was a lot. And I ended, where I landed was, what can I do to support you right now? And that's, again, you can use that on a daily basis at work and professional or even in your personal life. Just if you don't know what to say, it's nice for that to be our default. How can I serve you right now? How can I support you? Because we don't always know. you know, what that person needs from us at that moment in time. And just ask, you know, and you'd be surprised what, you know, the response that you might receive. You might learn, you know, what you can actually do when you're looking for, when you don't know what to do at times.
I think that's a good point, because sometimes if you're the person that is, you know, trying to get something off your chest, you don't even know what you want sometimes. Do you want an answer? Do you just want to vent?
Right.
So, yeah, sometimes I think that's a really good point, just asking what can I do to help?
Usually, we have, in my relationship, we have an agreement when we have this event session. We have okay, do you want solutions or do you want comfort? Because I can provide both of those for you, and we're going to provide 2 positives from both of those answers, but we need to know where we're going from here. So those along the lines of like, how can I assist you?
That's really good, because some people are just, you know, are natural fixers, and if somebody has a problem, well, here's the 5 things I want you to do to fix it, and or whatever, and it's like, I don't want to hear that right now, I just want to just cry a little, you know, so, but, yeah, that's a really healthy way to deal with that.
A lot of educators are fixers.
Yeah.
We talk about that a lot.
Well, one of the sections, if I can say something from the parental side, or just kind of, you know, I guess speak to the parents, because yes, I believe it's important that the administration, you know, really reflects the positive leadership. But parents have to reflect positive leadership too. And on page 115, this section, this was another section that got me, and I really wish everybody could have this book. If just nothing more than to read this section, help your team become unstoppable. And in this section, he talks about his daughter. He wanted his daughter to become this great lacrosse player, right? So when she started off, she definitely wasn't. She definitely wasn't. But his realization that, and let me just read this. He says, I had to admit, I wasn't a very positive leader at the time, and by pushing my expectations and frustrations on her, I almost caused her to quit playing. I was a classic transactional parent where my identity was tied to her success. And, oh, boy, I was like, oh my gosh, okay, that's a biggie. Basically, he had to disconnect himself from his thoughts of what success looks like, what it looks like in his kid. And once he made that realization and he became his child's basically their coach, that coach that's always in the corner, and he kept speaking into his child these positive affirmations that you are unstoppable, that you are going to do it, you're going to be the best lacrosse player ever. And she didn't start off that way, but she grew to be just that. And that section for every parent, you know, for every parent that wants their child to succeed, we all do, but we also have to take a step back. And I tell myself this, because I know I put pressure on my kids. I do it. But the idea is you're in their corner, you're part of their team, and that team is built on your positivity that you instill in them. If you just build them up, they can do it. So here at school, the administration will do their part. At home, you keep on building them up, being in their team, you know, prepping them, making sure they have the preparation to come and get what they're going to get here. Then you're unstoppable, for real. So it just resonated.
That's great. Good stuff. Anyone else? Great. We'll continue this book study. April 14th, we'll finish the book, chapters 9 through 12. We'll do it then.
Yep.
Great. Thank you. Good study.
Thank you. All right, up next, we have our Business Advisory Council update. Mrs. Aug.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Mr. Begley, members of the board. Last year, the board adopted updates to policy BCFA, which reflected changes in the Ohio Revised Code that gave school districts greater flexibility around meeting requirements related to business advisory committees. School districts can now partner with an ESC or a joint vocational school district. This gave us the opportunity to join the Butler Tech Business Advisory Committee, which allows us to collaborate with other districts around the region and gives us access to a larger network of businesses and community organizations. We were able to include members of our Business Advisory Committee that we had here at Fairfield in these meetings as well, and some of those members have been in attendance with Mr. Smith and myself throughout this year. So we've had 3 meetings so far, with one more coming up in May. What I have really enjoyed is being connected to a larger network. So in our first meeting this year, Senator Lang spoke to the group about workforce-related legislation, and then someone else kind of facilitated a conversation about current and future job trends in the region. At our second meeting, we had a guest speaker who talked about leadership and the importance of organizational values. And then both meetings had time set aside for businesses and schools to share ideas and ask questions and just kind of, open forum style. And then in my opinion, the best meeting of the year was our most recent one, which was our only in-person meeting. And this was the student roundtable meeting where they put students and business leaders and district leaders all at different tables mixed up together. So you can just kind of talk and network and learn from each other through the experience. And then students from Butler Tech's culinary school also make a lovely breakfast for us. Yes, it was very good. Lots of bacon and coffee. Which we all enjoyed. And, there were other things too. I only had bacon and coffee.
Not a bad choice.
So, it's always great to listen to the student experience, to learn from them, and I think, just reminds everyone sitting there at the table how important it is to continue to build those workforce opportunities for our students. So, and I wasn't even at a table with Fairfield students. I was at a table with Madison local students, and, they're just living their life and loving life because they are, working in a field where they're very passionate. And that's, just great to see. So, I think right now I would say this has been a very positive move for us. I would like to continue on this path and continue to stay continue to be a part of the Butler Tech Business Advisory Committee moving forward. So that's really all I have for my report. So thank you. Let me know if you have any questions.
I just want to comment on the students sitting at the round table. It's so important to get their input and feedback. I know in the coalition, we've had a couple events where we invite students to come, and when you're at a table, small, intimate conversation, you're able to share with other businesses and get the students' input on things like that. It's very valuable. Very valuable. Thank you.
All right. Our next item for board discussion is a planning commission appointment. And I do have Doug Robertson on the agenda for approval this evening. Actually, his name isn't there. It's blank at the moment. But Doug resides in the city of Fairfield and is very active in the community. He serves on the board for the Community Foundation, also an active member of the Fairfield Rotary Club. If the board approves his appointment, I will follow up with Doug, and similar to a process we had in place a few years ago, he would provide me with a summary from those meetings, and then I would provide updates to the Board of Education at our meetings as well. Any questions about that? Okay. All right, up next with a long list of capital projects to be advertised, I'll turn it over to Lance Perry.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Mr. Begley, members of the board, I have a few items for discussion today. The title is Capital Projects to be Advertised. Part of the process of moving forward is at the next meeting, hopefully we'll be asking for permission to move forward just to advertise the ability to take quotes for these items So it's not any type of approval or moving forward with anything at this time or the next meeting. The first item is the fuel tank restrooms and safety station. This is a structure near the fuel tanks on the transportation lot. This will provide our drivers the opportunity to use the restroom after fueling, being able to wash their hands if needed, and also provided a needed eye wash station for safety nearby. The goal is really to create a long-term solution of functionality, but also a very basic structure. The plans that we are working on is something that's extremely basic, no storage, nothing of that nature, really just fulfilling the need of restrooms and an eye wash station near the large diesel fueling area for the drivers. So, any questions on that one? I'll stop after each one and ask for questions. The next is flooring replacement in multiple buildings. There are two buildings with the greatest need, and that is East Elementary with approximately 43,000 square feet and Crossroads Middle School with 46,000 square feet. Other buildings identified are Creekside Middle School, North, South, and West Elementary. This program does include converting some carpet to tile in some areas. But Jamie Berkey and myself are working with the buildings and will continue to work with the buildings to make sure that the long-term needs of the building will be met with these improvements. As a rule of thumb, typically we like to keep carpet in areas such as the media centers and the office, but in other areas we find the long-term cleanliness of the building and the management of it, that transitioning to a hard surface is better. But we try to make sure that the buildings understand that, and if they have a need where maybe that doesn't work for the programs that we have in place right now, that we do in fact listen to them and keep them at the surface that they're requesting. Overall, this request in particular, normally we do some flooring requests that are much smaller throughout each year, but this in particular taking off a larger chunk in 1 year that leads that threshold above the requirements to put it out for advertisement. Blacktop repair replacement district-wide. This is an annual request. The district has had and will continue a short-term and long-term blacktop maintenance plan. I'll be honest with you, it's it's a very impressive piece that has been maintained over the years, and it's evident when I drive around to all the sites of that program. So we're going to continue that program as the plan that is currently in place. Fairfield High School theater upgrades. I'd like to highlight this is a multi-year plan, this being the first step. Replacing the stage curtains, at least the ones that in need, and also upgrading the sound system. The upgrade to the sound system will allow us to have the new wireless frequency, which is needed to be in the appropriate bandwidth, and then the stage curtains will transition to inherently fire-resistant material. Stage curtains in the past used to have to be taken down and treated approximately every 5 to 10 years. But the new curtains were able to, they're made of materials to where we don't have to do that anymore, and then they're good for the life of the fabric. There are additional requests that we've identified for theater upgrades, but due to the cost, spreading it over multiple years is the best approach. But we believe that it's important that our folks in the theater see that we are intentional about making good on those upgrades. And finally, the last two I will combine together, the Fairfield High School chiller replacement and also roof repair and downspouting repair and replacement. We have received pricing and are encouraged with that pricing, I am still working with Mr. Clemens through the necessary process of documentation to see if we do in fact need to go to public bid for these items. We are pursuing pricing through the Council of Governments and state bid options. I say that because we may not put these out for advertisement, just depending on if we're able to work through that process that with Mr. Clemens. But I still wanted to put them on the board discussion and also possibly for board approval at the next meeting, just in case if we need to move quickly, that we will have those items checked off to be able to move quickly to get to advertise and move forward. So that concludes the items. Is there any questions I can possibly answer?
The roof repair work that needs to be done here at the high school, how extensive is that?
Actually, it is a small amount. Actually, the downspout repair replacement is about 2/3 of that cost. I don't know exactly the square footage, which I could get to you, of course, but it is not catastrophic in any way, shape, or form. But also, with roof repair in particular, just like with blacktop, staying on top of the program is vitally important. So making sure that we, taking care of those smaller issues help us in the long run when we have larger issues.
Thank you. Questions?
Yes, I have a question about the chiller. Seems that since I've been on the board, we have had the chiller. It's been an item that's been talked about for maintenance for so many years. What is the life of the chiller? When was the last time we actually replaced it? And is there a specific coolant that it uses? The availability of that coolant? So I guess, yeah, the life of the replacement, of the life of the chiller. When was the last time we replaced it? Because it seems like we replaced it about, was it 6 years?
Yes,
So-
there's two.
Okay, all righty, yes,
So the request for this one,
okay.
sorry. The request for this one is the second one. The other one that was replaced a few years ago, no, that one's in good operating order. We are good to go.
Okay.
This is the second one.
Gotcha.
The life is 20 to 25 years is the goal. And I can tell you with the pricing that we've received, within that plan is a 10-year parts and labor warranty, which is considerable. So over or almost, hopefully, half the life will be covered on warranty of not only parts but labor.
Okay, all righty,
And refrigerant, by the way, sorry.
all righty.
Mr. Perry, just for your information, you may not have this information in the background. So for years, for a long time, we had a lot of issues here at the high school with the chiller. In fact, the saying was the chiller's down
Yeah.
here a lot, except for in this room. The chiller's always been fine in the community room. But out there, the rest of the building, for years, we had a lot of problems with our chillers, and it has stabilized. Yeah, I don't remember. I was in 16. I feel like towards the end of my tenure, we did an upgrade, and those issues kind of went away. But for a long time, we had a lot of issues here. But I think they've stabilized. So.
Whenever we were here, chiller, we were like, oh, God.
Yeah, it's never been an issue here in this room, but the rest of the building was not so fortunate. So,
We've come a long way.
yes, we have. All right.
Thank
Any
you.
other questions?